Now, what are you doing about the errors? And there are a few errors, aren't there?
Right. Now, in the very first printing, there were lots of typographical errors, switches of verse numbers. Maybe it said Peter or said Paul or something like that. And so we probably made hundreds and hundreds of page changes with it when we went into the second printing. And then the second, third, and fourth printing each had, maybe a handful of changing typographical errors. Almost every year, I think I only know of 2 errors that were actually errors. I had Dean Bergen. I had 2 errors about Dean Bergen, okay, where he was and what he was doing. I had him on the committee, and Cecil Carter pointed that one out to me. And he wasn't on the committee, the Westcott and Hort committee, and where he was dean. I had the wrong place. Westminster was Chichester, and those are the only actual errors that I know about. Now, there were typographical errors where someone got a quotation mark, and since there are so many quotation marks at the ends of sentences in the book, one of the quotation marks went at the end of the sentence, and they were supposed to be in the middle of the sentence. So that's a mistake. I dropped the word his somewhere, but essentially the notion of actual mistakes, it's a misnomer. It's either people are reading those typographical errors in the first printing, which haven't been in the book for 2 years. I think there were only several thousand copies that went out. So of the 70,000 copies that were in print, there were probably only 3,000 that went out that had those typographical errors in it. And those seem to have been the ones that these critics have gotten hold of. And the other 67,000 don't have them, and they're still, trying to, you know what it is, Yvonne? In law, it's called impeaching the witness, okay? What you do when you're a lawyer, and you put someone in the witness stand, and they say, I saw George kill her brother. Well, if you're the defending attorney, and you're trying to prove that George didn't kill his brother, okay, you do something called try to impeach the witness. You try to find that person who's sitting in the witness stand making one mistake, okay? If you can find that person in the witness stand making one mistake, you have, in effect, legally impeached the witness. That means if that person made a mistake on one thing, whether it's the date they were born, the date their sister, and this is what lawyers will do. They'll sit, and this is called badgering the witness, and they'll sit there, and they'll say, and what date did you do this? And then the person will get confused, and they'll go, well, maybe it was March, well, maybe it was April, on some obtuse point to the issue. And if they can prove that that person's memory is not a perfect memory, or that that person is wrong on absolutely any issue, they have, in fact, impeached that witness, and as far as the lawyers are concerned, the witness is thrown out, because then that testimony of that witness cannot be true anymore, okay? So in effect, that's what the critics are trying to do, impeach the witness. If they can pretend that there are all these errors in there, which there aren't, then a few errors, well, then they've impeached the witness because they cannot deal with the facts in the book. They can't sit down, the NASB people can't sit down and say, yes, we have a good reason why we used manuscript D in Luke chapter 24. There's no good reason for them using that, because P66, P75, Alpha, and B all have the reading of the King James. They use that kind of text for all the other ones. Why did they use D? There are case after case after case where the book proves them wrong. They cannot deal with each of those individual issues. So the only way they can deal with it is to, quote, impeach the witness. They're going to find out that the errors are not my errors, that they are the errors of the critics. And as I was researching, I found out that these people were in fact wrong. They'll say, she didn't say such and such or so-and-so. Well, I'll look at the page, and I know my book pretty well. Well, the quotation would be over 3 pages over. They would miss the quotation. They hurriedly moved through the book. And so what they're saying, well, she doesn't do this, or she doesn't say this, or this doesn't say this. And I can show, and as I do in this response, where I do in fact say and do all those things correctly, and the error is, on their part, misreading, reading things into the book that aren't really there, or misunderstanding things, or their lack of an in-depth background in a certain area. They'll make broad generalizations like, well, the New Age movement isn't so-and-so. Well, that's just their lack of understanding. Or they'll say, these new versions don't have Roman Catholic readings. Well, if they don't have Roman Catholic readings, why does the Roman Catholic Church accept them? I think that was one of Mr. Cloud's. They used the first edition of the book. Now, the first edition of the book was never proofwritten. I was too ill to do it. The pastor of the church that I was going to at the time said, get it out, and I was too ill, and it went out unproofwritten. And so, John got switched to Luke, and 66 got switched to 6. So they were corrected in the second edition. We found stragglers going on through there. There are no egregious errors that I'm aware of. There are minor errors. There are errors in... Okay. The quote, this is interesting. They said I took Norman Geisler out of context. Norman Geisler said we should be wary when anyone uses the term the Christ. Okay, and he ended the sentence with the Christ Spirit. Well, I dropped it off at the Christ because in his book Infiltrating the New Age, he has a 27-page section. But anyway, within the compass of that little tiny section, he uses the term the Christ 27 times without the Spirit on the end of it. And so after reading him using the term the Christ 27 times, to say that I took him out of context, he believes the term the Christ is wrong. He's got it 27 times in his book, and so that's fallacious material. But Mr. White is one of the young men. He lied. He changes quotes. He's got a changed quote in that book. And he puts it next to my quote, which is accurate. And he said, look how she changed it, and he's the one who changed it. That is legally actionable material. You're not allowed to do that. Okay, I don't misquote Palmer, but in that 62... Well, this is what they do. This is hilarious. I have a quote where Edwin Palmer says, few clear and decisive texts say that Jesus is God. Okay, now when they say I misquote Palmer, they say that I'm saying that he doesn't believe Jesus is God. Okay, they're not reading the words on a printed page. They're not reading few clear and decisive texts. All they go is, oh, she doesn't think he's God. It's like this generation has lost the ability to read words.